There is one financial system that makes $100 million companies every single time. You see, the biggest thing that kills businesses isn't people, it isn't marketing, and it isn't sales. All of that starts from having the right financial system used in your business. And there's different systems for each stage of your business. And after managing a portfolio of 7, 8, and 9-figure companies as a fractional CFO, consultant, strategic advisor, I'm going to tell you exactly what is working right now in 2026. And I'm going to break down the mental model that you can use inside of your business today in order to guarantee that you can survive recessions, acquire customers effectively, build the right type of team that actually scales the business instead of lowering your profit. All right, so let's get right into it. I actually borrowed some stuff from this guy named Secret CFO. He's phenomenal with the way he simplifies things. And I think that in combination with what we do at Green Mountain Advisors, it'd be really good to kind of borrow some terms that he's used. So just a disclaimer, there are some terms like manual, managed, specialized, connected, integrated that I think are phenomenal ways to define a business. And I think it's really important for you to think about it this way as well. So that's why I'm sharing it. And whenever you identify where you're at in your business based on revenue, it doesn't mean that there aren't problems from an earlier stage. So just because, you're a specialized business, you need specialized team members and stuff like that, it doesn't mean that you don't have a report coming in yet, or maybe you don't even have your fundamentals like the right chart of accounts set up, the right bookkeeping systems. So it's really important to kind of take this with a grain of salt and also audit the financial systems that you have currently in your business, because I've seen tons of people where they're making, $8 million a month and they still don't get a report about, how their business is doing. How can you operate like that? I have no idea. Typically they're younger guys, people who are just spending money, but they see the same money coming in, it's going out at the same rate. So it's like, you need a report, you need to get a little bit more corporate, quote unquote, just so that you can help consistently run the business without feeling like it's about to go bankrupt month to month. That's fine if that's you. Typically what happens is in the $0 to $1.5 million revenue mark, it's basically just you on the finance team. You're probably checking your bank app constantly. You're probably thinking about what's coming in and what's coming out. Maybe you're doing like a mental log of everything. You don't really have a good system for defining margins and keeping your margins tight, because expenses pop up and you're just kind of playing it as it goes. Right now, you're in survival mode. You're just trying to make sales and scale the company. At stage 2, you have a managed system where you probably have a bookkeeper now. Maybe you talk to an accountant at the end of every year. Maybe you get a monthly report. This is where you're starting to understand that it's important to actually think strategy in the company, because most of the fundamentals have been solved for, and now you're just thinking about scaling. So at this stage, the $1 to $5 million stage, you're thinking about managing your company. That means bringing in a fractional CFO, maybe a bookkeeper, maybe a clerk, whatever it is. It depends on the business as well. And that's why I'm trying to keep this a little bit general. You do need somebody in the finance department kind of looking things over week over week, month over month, etc. And then once you get to specialized levels of revenue, $5 to $20 million, that's when you start to need experts for each part of the business. We're going to go into all of this, by the way, in detail for each stage further on in the video. But essentially at this stage, you're going to need a controller. That's a person who's managing all the day-to-day activities, somebody specifically for analysis on the future, and a full-time CFO who's going to be involved in capital raising, M&A, just some more specialized things that are going to happen in your business, debt financing, stuff like that. It means you're scaling. It means that the numbers are coming in pretty aggressively. You need somebody to handle all at once, and you need a team. By the time you're at $20 to $100 million in revenue, you have people in finance in every department of your company. So now your company's developing departments or business units. Teams are making money decisions on their own, and the branching starts to really wear out. You start to see all the roots start to take place, right? And then you have stage 5, and that's when you're making more than $100 million in revenue. And that means, that's where the AI is really going to come in. You have an elite team, you have thousands, if not hundreds of lemonade stands, and you have robots running most of the show. And at that point, there's a small finance team. Like Apple, it's kind of like you have a small team, you have a big team, and then you have a small team again. Like Apple has 9 to 13 people on their finance team covering the entire company. That's insane. But that's also because they've become so efficient. They've already automated a lot of stuff. So what does stage 1 manual look like? Maybe you're the person who's in charge of all the finances. Maybe you have a part-time VA or helper, an accountant that you talk to once a year for taxes. What does it feel like? You're probably doing everything in the business. You're probably checking your banking app 10 times a day. You're probably checking your client customer list. You're probably figuring out whether you sent an invoice correctly or not. And you want to just make sure you didn't lose money last month, or you're not losing money this month or this week. So as a fifth grader, I like the fifth grader example. You're doing everything. You're checking your banking app and you're sending invoices that don't make sense. And once again, you're not sure if you made money or lost money. Imagine you have a lemonade stand. You're the one buying lemons, making lemonade, selling cups, counting the money in your shoebox at the end of the day. You don't have a system. You just say, okay, whatever I have today is what I have, and that's great. That's not really how you want to run the business. You want to get out of that as quickly as possible, and then we move on to stage two. So stage two is where you want to actually manage your revenue. You pull yourself out of the impression that, oh my God, I'm making $1 million or $5 million a year in revenue. Like, this is amazing, blah, blah, blah. And you start to realize the amount of work that it takes to do it, right? At this point, you need a bookkeeper, part-time, probably full-time. You're still making some big financial decisions. You probably have a fractional CFO, at least for a few hours. Most of the time, it's like 10 to 20 hours a month. This feels like you're no longer in that banking app. Things are a little bit more strategic. You're able to focus more on the business. Somebody else is tracking the numbers that matter. You have a simple report each month, and it tells you what came in, what came out, and you can probably see 3 months ahead instead of just what happened today, tomorrow, and maybe on Friday. And this means that your lemonade stand is now busy. You have your friend to count the money, write down every sale. At the end of each week, they hand you a piece of paper that says, hey, we made $50. We spent $20 on lemons and cups, and we have $30 left. So now there's less guesswork, right? You're actually operating a real company. And then we move on to specialized. And in specialized, this is when the finance team really starts to support the CEO with like massive moves, right? So you have a controller, somebody who's overseeing the bookkeepers and making sure that things are done on time. You have an FP&A person. This is the person who's making the predictions, the forecast, tells you why you made, missed, or beat your plan that you had with the CFO. He's probably involved in the forecasting as well. You have somebody who's just focused on billing and collections, maybe also paying vendors. At this point, there's people in every single part of the company. It feels like there's a lot of control and that everything is recorded properly. There's no guesswork. It's completely planned out. People can just go and focus on operations while this thing hums in the background perfectly fine. Your lemonade stand is now 3. You have 3 lemonade stands. They're across town. You can't be everywhere. You have friends to make sure all the money is being counted appropriately the same way every single week. That's your controller. You have another friend who's going to predict how much lemonade you'll sell next month based on what we think is going to happen and also what we did before. And then you have a CFO who's overseeing all of that and giving you strategy discussions back and forth, right? This is incredibly important. Honestly, I like to jumpstart this into businesses at that $500,000 mark. So like even sooner, but this is crucial at least between 5 to 20 million, if not sooner. I think it should be a lot sooner, but 5 to 20 million, it's already there. It already exists. Okay. So now we're connected, right? 20 to $100 million in revenue, everything from the previous stages, but now you have finance partners who are literally in each department. There's micro budgets and forecasts and analysis for literally every single department in the company. The CFO is building systems. He's not just doing reporting and strategy calls. People are now making their own money decisions using the rules that you've set. So now there's, a certain amount of money that every single manager in each department can spend. Finance doesn't feel like a back office anymore. It's more leading the charge with the CEO. The sales team has their own finance partner. The marketing team has one too. Everyone's speaking the same language. There's no more bottleneck in the CEO's position anymore. Everything is kind of already running and it's a legitimate business that doesn't have as much key man risk with the CEO. And now you have 20 lemonade stands. You have a team running each one. You can't approve every single purchase of lemons. So you create a rule. Each manager can spend up to X amount of dollars without asking me. You put a helper at each stand who knows all the money stuff. So they're making sure that everything is being tracked appropriately. And they help the manager make smart choices without having to call you every single time. This is kind of where most CEOs will opt out of their business, go for an exit. Maybe they just get a report at the end of every week. If they just want to keep the business where it's at and they don't want to keep scaling, taking on more risk, building something bigger than what they intended to in the first place. Maybe they're trying to make an exit, whatever it is. At this point, things start to just happen automatically. There's less involvement, less stress in the business, and things are a lot better. So now we go into an integrated system. This is a lot more complex actually, because this is where you have a small smaller finance team, and the computers and the AI are doing the repetitive work. So you're going to see a lot of ERP implementation. So that's enterprise resource planning. Humans are only handling the weird stuff and making the big decisions. And the CFO is an architect designing the systems. They're no longer really doing any tasks. And this feels like the system is really running itself. This is like the $100 million plus business that, you have in large retail companies like Louis Vuitton, Hermes, just massive organizations where a lot of things are just automated. System runs itself. You'll get an alert when something's wrong instead of checking everything manually. The books close themselves every day. Finance is just like electricity. It's always on. It's always available. Things are always accessible. There's probably a lot of custom stuff done in the business to make sure reporting looks good. And, as a CEO, you're really not as involved in finance. The CFO oversees it. And even the CFO is really just thinking about strategy and partnerships and larger scale things with the CEO. And now the Lemonade business is huge, hundreds of stands. You can't track it. You build a robot. It watches everything. It orders lemons when you're running low, and it automatically spots when one stand is losing money, and then you can go and correct it. So it's just always running 24/7. The scale is huge. And, this is the goal of every business, is to continuously generate revenue with the least time commitment, obviously provide some shareholder value and return of capital to the shareholders, maybe go public, whatever it is. At the end of the day, this is the roadmap. This is what you need to do to build out your finance department to make sure that you're scaling your company appropriately, because finance will become the bottleneck given enough time. So I hope you like this video. If you want to see more videos, feel free to check out my channel. And if you'd like to schedule a one-on-one with me, feel free to hit the link in the description below, and I'll see you on the next one.